might talk on John Muir. John Muir was born on the 21st of April in 1838, and he died on the 24th of December 1914. John Muir was born in Dunbar, and that's a picture of the house he was born in. John Muir also grew up in Dunbar, and they immigrated to America in 1849 when John was 11 years old. They immigrated to a farm called Fountain Lake Farm, and that's a picture of the entrance to it. His father was very religious, and he believed that anything that distracted from Bible studies was frivolous and punishable. John had 7 siblings. He had 2 brothers, David and Daniel, and 5 sisters, who were Margaret, Sarah, Anne and Mary, who were twins, and Joanna, who was born in America. John fell in love with nature while he was still young, and people thought that he fell in love with nature because he had such a strict and religious upbringing. John Muir was famous in America for being so into nature. He liked to invent and explore. So when he went to America, he explored woods, swamps, and he liked to collect plants. When John was 22, he went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and that's the university, and he paid for it himself. Under a black locust tree, he had his first botany lesson, and a fellow student plucked a flower from the tree and used it to explain how the grand locust tree is a member of the pea family. And that's a picture of the black locust tree, and that's the plant. 50 years later, John, who is now a naturalist, described this day in his autobiography. He said, "This fine lesson charmed me and sent me flying to the woods and meadows in wild enthusiasm." In 1864, John left school and his money was now running out. So he met up with his brother Daniel in Ontario, where the two worked at a sawmill on the shore of Lake Huron until the summer of 1865. And that's a picture of the lake and the sawmill that they worked at. Muir's trip to Canada was likely influenced by the Civil War draft because President Lincoln was calling up another 500,000 soldiers, and John's chances of getting drafted were becoming increasingly likely. But he carried on working at the sawmill until March 1866, and then he left and returned to the States to work as an industrial worker. And that's the industrial factory that he went to. And he became really valuable to the factory because his inventiveness was it improved all the machines and it improved the lives of the people that worked there. And then he went, in early March 1867, an accident changed his life because a tool slipped and it hit him in the eye. So he was confined to a dark room for 6 weeks, and he was worried if he'd ever see again. But he did get his sight back, and that's a picture of him after the accident, and his eyes are really wide. When he got his sight back, he said that he would then see the world and his purpose in new light. And then in September 1867, he undertook a walk of 1,000 miles from Indiana to Florida, and he didn't really have a route, but he wanted to go on the wildest, leafiest, and least trodden way he could find, and that's his route.
Which?
It's the big one. And then when he reached Florida, he wanted to board a ship to South America and continue his wandering there, but he contracted malaria on Florida's Gulf Coast, which convinced him to abandon his plans for South America. So then he sailed to New York and he booked a passage to California. And when he arrived there, in San Francisco, in March 1868, he then went straight to Yosemite, a place he had only read about, but he really wanted to go because it sounded really nice, and that's Yosemite. And he then returned, and he built a sawmill, and he cut up all the logs and made like a cabin for himself, and he lived there for 2 years. And I think that John Muir is the greatest Scot because he gave so much back to Scotland because he was really good at what he did, and he was proud to be Scottish. And that's my talk.